The friction of steel against steel creates a low, singing vibration that travels up through the floorboards and into the soles of my shoes. It is a feeling of deceleration, a physical heaviness that signals the end of speed and the beginning of stillness. Outside the double-paned glass, the blur of the Belgian countryside, endless stripes of green fields and gray horizons, begins to separate into distinct shapes. A fence post, a brick siding, a row of parked bicycles leaning against a wire mesh. The train does not stop abruptly, but rather glides into a state of rest, the momentum fading like a long-held breath finally released. Rain streaks the window, not in a downpour, but in a fine, clinging mist that turns the world outside into a soft focus painting of slate and charcoal. I remain seated for a moment, even after the carriage halts. There is no rush here. The air inside the cabin is still, smelling faintly of coffee and fabric. Slowly, I gather my things. The coat, heavy wool and cool to the touch, settles over my shoulders. The scarf wraps twice around my neck, a soft barrier against the anticipated chill. My hand finds the handle of my suitcase, the leather grip worn smooth by years of travel, and I pull it from the rack. It lands with a muted thud on the carpeted aisle, a sound that marks the true beginning of my arrival. Stepping out onto the platform, the atmosphere shifts instantly. The air is cooler here, damp and smelling of wet concrete and distant ozone. It is a subterranean kind of cool, sheltered from the open sky by the sweeping canopy of the station roof. I join the loose stream of travelers moving toward the stairs. We do not speak. We are a collective of footsteps and rolling wheels, a river of quiet motion flowing toward the exit. The ground beneath my feet is a study in texture. First, the high grip rubber of the train steps, firm and secure. Then the poured concrete of the platform, smooth, but with a subtle grit that whispers against the soles of my boots. I establish a rhythm. Step, step, slide. The suitcase follows behind me, its wheels humming a steady monotone note on this polished surface. It is a low drone, a white noise that anchors me to the present moment. I reach the escalator and pause, letting the moving metal step rise to meet me. The handrail is black rubber, moving in perfect sync with the stairs. I rest my hand there, feeling the faint vibration of the motor deep below. For 30 seconds, I do not move. I simply stand and let the machinery carry me upward. The view expands as I rise. The gray light of the afternoon filters through the glass walls of the station hall, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the high, vaulted space. At the top, the floor changes again. Now it is a vast expanse of polished tile, speckled with flecks of quartz and granite. The acoustic quality of the space opens up. The sound of my suitcase wheels changes from a hum to a hollow, rhythmic click-clack as they cross the seams between the tiles. Click-clack, click-clack. The rhythm is hypnotic. It matches the beating of my heart, a slow and steady cadence that pushes away the frantic energy of travel. I navigate the concourse with a slow, deliberate gait. There are shops on the periphery, glowing with warm yellow light, selling chocolates and magazines. But they are just blurs of color in my peripheral vision. My focus is on the tactile sensation of walking. The weight of the bag in my right hand is a grounding force. It pulls slightly at my shoulder, a reminder of the gravity that holds us to the earth. I switch hands, the leather handle warm from my grip, and the sensation of relief in my right arm is immediate and pleasant. The exit doors are ahead. They are tall glass barriers that slide open with a pneumatic hiss as I approach. I step through the threshold and into the city of Bruges. The transition is subtle. The polished tiles of the station give way to a pavement of large, flat paving stones. The sound of the wheels drops an octave, becoming a deep, rumbling bass. The air here is real air, not conditioned or filtered. It carries the scent of damp earth, moss, and the faint, sweet aroma of waffle batter drifting from a distant vendor. The mist is heavier now, a delicate veil that clings to my coat and cools my cheeks. I turn away from the bustle of the bus bays and taxi stands, seeking the quiet path that leads toward the center. This is the beginning of the long walk, the low information valley where the mind can stop processing and simply be. The path is lined with trees, their branches bare and black against the gray sky. They form a natural tunnel, a corridor of silence. Underfoot, the paving stones are uneven, settled by time and weather. My boots find purchase on the damp stone. Heel toe, heel toe. The sound of my walking is softer here, absorbed by the open air and the damp earth on either side of the path. I walk for a long time. There is no need to check a map. The direction is intuitive, following the pull of the old city. To my left, a grassy bank rises, green and lush despite the season. To my right, a low brick wall runs parallel to my path, covered in patches of vibrant green moss. I run a gloved finger along the top of the wall as I pass. The brick is rough, cold, and solid. It has been here for a long time. The rhythm of the suitcase changes again as the path turns to gravel. The smooth rumble is replaced by a crunching, granular sound. It requires more effort to pull, a gentle resistance that engages the muscles of my arm and back. I slow my pace to match the terrain. Crunch a step, crunch a step. The sound is satisfying, organic. It is the sound of a garden path, of a walk in the woods. A light rain begins to fall, tapping gently against the fabric of my coat. I do not hurry. The The rain is part of this place, an essential element of the atmosphere. It deepens the colors of the world. The gray gravel turns a darker slate. The brown bark of the trees turns almost black. The green of the grass becomes electric, glowing in the soft light. I breathe in deeply. The air is rich with oxygen and moisture. It feels cleansing in my lungs. I exhale a cloud of white mist that hangs for a moment in the still air before dissolving. Ahead, the path widens. The gravel gives way to a bridge. It is not a grand bridge, but a simple brick arch spanning a narrow waterway. This is the first water. I pause at the apex of the arch. Below, the canal is a mirror of dark glass. It is completely still, undisturbed by wind or current. Fallen leaves rest on the surface, suspended in perfect stasis. They are brown and gold, drifting islands on a black sea. I lean against the parapet. The brick is damp. I look down into the water and see my own silhouette reflected there, a dark shape against the gray sky. There are no swans here, not yet, but I know they are near. I can feel their presence in the stillness, in the graceful curve of the canal as it disappears around a bend of weeping willows. Leaving the bridge, the ground becomes harder again. I have reached the edge of the old town. The transition is marked by the sound of the suitcase meeting cobblestones. This is the signature sound of Bruges. It is a stuttering, rattling rhythm, a tactile vibration that shakes the handle and travels up my arm. It is not uncomfortable. It is textural. It tells me that I am walking on history. These stones are round and smooth, worn down by centuries of footsteps and cartwheels. They vary in color from gray to brown to a deep reddish purple. I watch them pass beneath my feet, a mosaic of geology laid out in irregular patterns. I have to walk slower here. The uneven surface demands attention. I place each foot with care, feeling the contours of the stones through the soles of my boots. The streets are narrow, lined with brick houses that rise straight up from the pavement. The bricks are small and dark, held together by pale mortar. The facades are stepped at the top, like staircases leading to the sky. I pass a window with lace curtains drawn tight. Inside, a warm lamp glows, suggesting a quiet domesticity that is entirely separate from my journey. I turn a corner and the soundscape changes. The rattling of my wheels echoes off the high walls, amplifying the sense of solitude. There are no cars here. The only other sound is the distant, muffled tolling of a bell. 1, 2, 3. It is a deep, resonant sound that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. It hangs in the heavy air, vibrating long after the strike has ceased. I continue to walk. The street curves gently, following the line of a hidden canal. I can smell the water again, that mineral, earthy scent. A bicycle leans against a lamppost, its frame glistening with droplets of rain. The seat is covered with a plastic bag to keep it dry. It is a small detail, a practical touch that feels immensely human. My destination is near. I can feel the fatigue in my legs now, a pleasant heaviness that comes from honest movement. I shift the bag to my left hand again. The street opens up into a small square. In the center stands a large tree, its roots buckling the cobblestones slightly. A wooden bench sits beneath it, empty and inviting, but I press on. The hotel is a narrow building tucked between two larger merchant houses. The door is heavy oak, painted a glossy dark green. I stop before it. The brass handle is cold and solid. I turn it, and the door opens with a heavy, well-oiled click. The lobby is small and warm. The silence here is different from the silence of the street. It is a padded, interior silence. The floor is covered in a thick Persian runner that instantly silences my footsteps. The air smells of beeswax polish and dried lavender. There is no complex check-in procedure. A quiet exchange of words, a nod, a smile. A heavy brass key is placed in my hand. It is cool and substantial, with a large tassel attached to the ring. It feels like a key to a secret garden or a chest of forgotten things. I bypass the small elevator and take the stairs. They are wooden, winding upward in a tight spiral. The wood creaks softly under my weight, a domestic sound that feels welcoming. The banister is polished smooth, sliding under my hand as I ascend. 1 flight, 2 flights. The carpet on the stairs is deep red, absorbing the sound of my ascent. I reach the 2nd floor. The hallway is dimly lit by wall sconces that cast warm pools of light on the cream-colored wallpaper. I find the door with the number 24 painted on a small porcelain oval. I insert the key into the lock. The mechanism turns with a satisfying metallic clunk. The room is a sanctuary. I step inside and close the door behind me. The latch clicks, sealing out the world. The room is not large, but it is perfectly proportioned. A large window dominates the far wall, draped in heavy velvet curtains that are currently pulled back to reveal the twilight. I leave my suitcase by the door. I do not unpack yet. I simply stand in the center of the room and let the atmosphere settle around me. The floor is dark wood, polished to a high shine. A woven rug sits at the foot of the bed. I walk to the window. The view looks out over the canal I sensed earlier. The water is directly below, lapping gently against the brick foundation of the hotel. Across the water, the back of another row of houses rises, their windows dark, save for 1 or 2 glowing rectangles of yellow light. A willow tree trails its branches in the water, the tips breaking the surface tension with infinite delicacy. And then I see it, a single white shape gliding silently out from the shadows of the bridge. A swan. It moves without effort, a cloud of white feathers on the dark water. It creates a V-shaped wake that ripples outward, disturbing the reflection of the street lamps. I watch it until it disappears into the mist, a ghost of the canals. I turn back to the room. The bed is high, covered in a duvet of pristine white. I approach it slowly. The fatigue I have been holding at bay finally washes over me. It is not an exhaustion of the spirit, but a heaviness of the body that craves horizontal rest. I sit on the edge of the bed. The mattress is firm but yielding. I unlace my boots one by one. The laces are stiff with dampness. I pull them loose, feeling the pressure release across the top of my foot. I slide my heel out, then the other. The freedom is exquisite. I wiggle my toes in their wool socks, feeling the blood return to the extremities. I stand one last time to remove my coat. The wool is heavy, retaining the cold of the outdoors. I hang it in the wardrobe, brushing the moisture from the shoulders. The scarf follows, uncoiling from my neck like a shedding skin. I do not turn on the main light. The illumination from the bedside lamp is enough. It casts a warm, golden circle on the pillow. I pull back the duvet. The sheets underneath are cool, crisp cotton. They are pulled tight, without a single wrinkle. I slide into the bed. The sensation of the cool sheets against my skin is a shock that instantly turns into comfort. I pull the heavy duvet up to my chin. The weight of it is grounding, a physical reassurance of safety. My head sinks into the pillow, which releases a faint scent of starch and fresh air. I lie on my back, staring up at the ceiling. The wooden beams are visible in the dim light, dark stripes against the white plaster. I listen. The room is quiet, but not silent. There are the settling sounds of the old building, the creak of a timber, the groan of a pipe, and outside, the faint, rhythmic lapping of the canal water against the brick. My body begins to let go. The tension in my shoulders dissolves. The muscles in my legs, tired from the cobblestones, soften and lengthen. My hands rest open on the white sheet. I close my eyes. The image of the swan glides behind my eyelids, white against black, moving in perfect silence. The rhythm of the train is gone, replaced by the slow, tidal rhythm of my own breath. In, out, in, out. The city of Bruges is outside, waiting in its mist and stone. But for now, the world has shrunk to the square footage of this bed, the warmth of the duvet, and the gentle, rocking sensation of drifting toward sleep. The morning mist hangs low over the southern edge of Bruges, dissolving the horizon into a soft, gray gradient. It is a quiet, heavy air that muffles the sound of the city, wrapping the brick towers and the weeping willows in a blanket of damp silence. I stand at the edge of the Minwater, the lake of love, where the water is not so much a liquid as a mirror made of polished obsidian. There is no wind to disturb it, only the occasional ripple from a coot paddling near the reeds, sending out concentric rings that widen and vanish without a sound. The air smells of wet stone and dormant earth. It is a scent that speaks of age, of things that have stood in the rain for centuries. My boots find purchase on the gravel path that encircles the lake. The crunch of small stones underfoot is the only rhythm here, a steady percussion to the morning's melody of stillness. Ahead, the red brick structure of the Sashuis waits. It is a small, fortified lock house, guarding the entrance where the canal water spills into the city. I approach it slowly, letting the architecture reveal itself in layers. The brickwork is weathered, darkened by time and moss, absorbing the weak morning light rather than reflecting it. I lean over the stone parapet to look down at the water. Here the stillness breaks. The purpose of the Sashuis becomes clear in the movement of the current. Below me, the water is guided through the mechanism that has controlled the levels of the canals for generations. I focus on the dark, churning water at the base of the brick wall. There are 3 distinct drainage openings here. They are not identical. The first, on the far left, is a wide arch, dark and cavernous, swallowing the flow with a deep, resonant gurgle. It takes the bulk of the current, a heavy, muscular rush of water that disappears beneath the building. The middle opening is narrower, a vertical slit in the masonry where the water moves faster, hissing slightly as it squeezes through the constriction. It creates a small line of white foam that dances on the surface before dissolving. The third opening is the smallest, set slightly higher than the others. It seems to function as an overflow, a safety valve. Water only trickles over its lip, a gentle, melodic splashing that harmonizes with the deeper roar of the main arch. I watch the interplay of these 3 currents: the heavy rush, the focused hiss, and the gentle trickle. They merge on the other side, blending back into a single, unified body of water that glides silently toward the city center. Leaving the mechanics of the lock behind, I cross the bridge that leads to the beguinage. The transition is marked by a gatehouse, a portal that feels less like an entrance and more like a filter. The noise of the outside world, already faint, is stripped away entirely as I pass under the arch. A small sign requests silence, but the request feels unnecessary. The atmosphere here demands it naturally. The beguinage is a world turned inward. Whitewashed facades surround a central green courtyard, their stepped gables rising like frozen waves against the gray sky. The white paint is not stark. It is a creamy, textured white, softened by the damp air and the shadows of the trees. The grass in the center is a vivid, impossible green, carpeted with the first hints of spring bulbs pushing through the soil. I step onto the path that traces the perimeter of the garden. The ground here is packed earth and cobblestone, uneven and honest, but it is the trees that command the space. This is a grove of tall, slender trunks, rising high above the roof lines. I pause near the center of the green, looking up into the canopy. These are Carolina poplars. Their trunks are deeply furrowed, ridges of bark running vertically like rivers on a map. But it is their sound that holds me. A gentle breeze has begun to move through the upper branches. It does not howl or whistle. The sound is dry and crisp. The leaves of the Carolina poplar are structured in a way that makes them tremble at the slightest breath of air. As the breeze passes through, thousands of leaves brush against one another. It sounds like the turning of pages in an ancient library. It is a paper-like rustle, a dry whispering that cascades from the top of the canopy down to the lower branches. I close my eyes and listen. The sound rises and falls, a tidal wash of friction. It is the sound of dry paper, of parchment being shuffled, of stiff silk rubbing against itself. It is distinct from the wet slap of oak leaves or the needle hiss of pines. It is a textured, brittle sound that emphasizes the peace of the garden. I find a wooden bench set back against the white wall of a house. The wood is cold and damp, grounded and solid. I settle onto it, letting the weight of my coat drape around me. This is a place to stop. The world here consists of vertical lines and green plains. The trunks of the poplars rise straight and true, pillars of gray and brown that frame the view. Between them, the white houses sit motionless. There is no movement in the windows, no doors opening or closing. The only activity is the subtle shift of light and the slow drift of the clouds above. I watch a single patch of moss on the tree, trunk nearest to me. It is a velvet cushion of emerald green, vivid against the dark, craggy bark. A tiny drop of moisture clings to the tip of a moss filament. It swells, heavy with gravity, holding the reflection of the white house opposite. It trembles, holds, and then falls, darkening the bark beneath it. I breathe in. The air is cool, filling my lungs with the taste of rain and clean grass. I breathe out, watching a small plume of mist escape my lips and vanish. The rhythm of the place takes over. There is no urgency here. The seconds stretch out, becoming long and fluid. My hands rest on my lap, the wool of my gloves interlocking. I feel the weave of the fabric, the slight pressure of my fingers against each other. A pigeon descends from the gutter of the roof. It lands on the grass with a soft thud, bobbing its head as it walks. The iridescent feathers on its neck catch the dull light, flashing purple and green. It pecks at the ground once, twice, then tucks its head into its chest and becomes a statue. I watch the grass. The blades are not uniform. Some are tall and bend under their own weight. Others are short and stiff. The wind moves them in waves, a slow ripple that travels from the left side of the courtyard to the right. It is hypnotic, this ceaseless, gentle motion. It is like watching the ocean, but slower, quieter. The light changes imperceptibly. The gray sky brightens for a moment, thinning the clouds, and the white walls of the beguinage glow with a sudden, soft intensity. The green of the grass deepens. Shadows, previously vague and diffused, sharpen slightly at the base of the trees. Then the clouds thicken again, and the light retreats, softening the edges of the world once more. I listen to the rhythm of my own breathing. In for a count of 4, out for a count of 4. The rustle of the poplars provides the background static, a white noise that scrubs away stray thoughts. There is nothing to solve here. There is no destination to reach. There is only the bench, the cold air, the vertical trees, and the green earth. A distant bell tolls. It is deep and muffled, coming from the direction of the main square. 1, 2, 3. The sound decays slowly, lingering in the enclosed garden before fading into the rustle of the leaves. I remain still. The cold has seeped through the layers of my clothing, but it is not unpleasant. It is a grounding sensation, a reminder of the physical world. It makes the warmth of my own body feel more contained, more precious. I watch the pigeon rouse itself, stretch a gray wing, and take flight, the clap of its wings loud in the silence. It circles the courtyard once and disappears over the red tiled roof. The space it leaves behind feels empty, but full of peace. I let my gaze drift out of focus, turning the scene into a wash of colors. White, green, gray, brown. The colors blend at the edges. The visual input slows down. The mind slows down. Minutes pass, or perhaps an hour. The measurement of time feels irrelevant in a place that has looked exactly like this for 400 years. The stillness is the only clock. Eventually, I shift my weight. The wood of the bench creaks, a sharp sound that breaks the spell but does not shatter it. I stand up slowly, feeling the stiffness in my legs, the return of gravity. I adjust my scarf, pulling it tighter against the chill. I walk back toward the gatehouse, my steps slow, carrying the quiet of the garden with me. I pass back under the arch, leaving the sanctuary of the beguinage. The city returns, but gently. The cobbled street leads me toward the canal again. To my right, the massive brick spire of the church of Our Lady rises, a towering monument that dominates the skyline. It is impossibly high, the brickwork fading into the mist at the very top. I do not go inside the church today. Instead, I follow the water that flows along its base. The path narrows, leading me to the Bonifaciusbrug. It is a small stone bridge, tucked away behind the church, shaded by trees and high walls. It looks ancient, though I know it is younger than the buildings around it. The atmosphere, however, is timeless. I step onto the bridge. The surface is uneven, worn smooth by countless footsteps. The stone parapet is low, inviting me to rest my hands upon it. The stone is cold, damp, and rough. I look closely at the railing. It is not made of uniform blocks. The stones are irregular, mismatched in texture and color. This is where the history of the city is hidden in plain sight. These are not quarried stones cut for this bridge. They are recycled memories. I run my gloved hand along the top rail until I find a section that feels different. It is a block of blue-gray stone, harder and smoother than the sandstone around it. I lean in close. The surface is pitted and worn, but the carvings are there. Faint lines, cut by a chisel centuries ago. A fragment of a cross. The curve of a letter, perhaps of the letter C or an O. Part of a Latin inscription that has been lost to time. These are tombstones. The railing of the Bonifaciusbrug is built from the grave markers of the old saint. Donations cathedral repurposed, given a second life as a guide for the living. I trace the edge of the stone with my finger. Beneath the moss and the weathering, I can feel the intentional ridge of a border, the sharp angle of a mason's work. There is another stone a few feet away. This one has a floral motif, a stylized lily or rose, barely visible now, eroded by wind and rain, until it is little more than a shadow on the rock face. I press my palm against it. It feels dense, heavy, with a weight that goes beyond the physical. It is a quiet realization. The bridge I stand on is made of endings, yet it serves as a connection. The stones that once marked a final resting place now hold me up as I watch the water flow. I look down at the canal below the bridge. The water is dark green here, shadowed by the high walls of the church and the overhanging branches. A family of swans drifts by, moving upstream with effortless grace. Their white feathers are luminous in the gloom. They pass beneath me, silent and regal, their reflections trailing behind them like ghosts. The light is beginning to fade now. The gray sky is darkening to a charcoal hue. Lanterns along the canal bank flicker to life, casting pools of warm, amber light onto the wet cobblestones and the black water. I linger on the bridge, my hand still resting on the recycled stone. The rustle of the poplars is a memory now, replaced by the soft lap of water against the brick embankment. The air grows colder, settling into the streets, bringing the day to a close. I do not move to leave yet. I simply stand, suspended between the church tower and the water, holding onto the rough, cold stone of the bridge railing, watching the last of the light dissolve into the canal. The morning light in Bruges does not break, it seeps. It permeates the heavy velvet curtains of the room before I have even opened my eyes, carrying with it the distinct, damp scent of a city built on water. When I finally draw back the fabric, the window reveals a world painted in soft grays and burnt oranges. The cobblestones below are slick with the memory of a night rain, shining like the back of a wet stone. I dress slowly. There is no urgency here. The sweater feels thick and grounding against the chill of the room. My boots lace up with a quiet friction, the sound distinct in the silence of the early hour. Stepping out onto the street, the air is cool and tastes faintly of river clay and old brick. The city is still sleeping, or perhaps it is just holding its breath. I turn my collar up and begin to move. The rhythm of the walk is set instantly by the uneven ground, a tactile negotiation between the soles of my boots and the rounded stones that have paved these paths for centuries. My destination lies in the heart of the old merchant quarters. The streets wind and curve, refusing straight lines, guiding me toward the Bruges district. Here, the architecture shifts from the charming to the imposing. The brickwork becomes intricate, a display of wealth and power solidified in masonry. I arrive at the gate of the Bruges Museum. The courtyard is open, a pocket of stillness guarded by high walls. I step inside. The noise of the waking city, faint as it was, vanishes completely. The ground here is a tapestry of stone. I move toward the center, my gaze drawn upward to the facade of the palace. It is a masterpiece of the 15th century, a testament to the lords of Bruges. But I am not here for the grand silhouette. I am here for a detail, a whisper carved into the rock. Above the main entrance, nestled within the intricate stonework, lies the family motto. I stand still, tilting my head back to find it. The stone is weathered, softened by 500 years of wind and rain, yet the letters remain legible. Plus est en vous. More is in you. I do not think about the meaning. I do not analyze the philosophy. Instead, I watch the light. The sun has climbed just enough to cast the shadow of a nearby turret across the face of the building. The shadow is sharp, a line of dark ink drawn against the pale sandstone. It is needle-thin. I watch it traverse the motto. It touches the bottom curve of the letter P. It lingers there. The movement is imperceptible if one stares directly. But if I look away at a gargoyle and look back, the darkness has crept upward. It bisects the letter, a slow, celestial erasure. The contrast is absolute, the bright, illuminated stone, and the deep, cold gray of the shadow. It creates a texture I can almost feel with my eyes, a roughness that speaks of grains of sand held together by time. The silence in the courtyard is heavy. It presses against my ears, a comforting weight. I remain until the shadow has claimed the first word entirely, leaving only the rest of the phrase bathing in the morning sun. Leaving the courtyard requires a slow pivot, a reluctance to break the spell. I drift back through the gate, the sound of my own footsteps announcing my return to the wider world. The transition is soft. The walls recede and the space opens up. The smell of water becomes stronger, a fresh, organic scent that signals the proximity of the Daver. The canal stretches out, a long, glassy ribbon reflecting the sky. The water is a deep, opaque green, the color of bottle glass. Along the banks, the trees lean inward, their branches creating a vaulted ceiling of leaves that filters the light into dappled patterns on the path. I find a bench near the water's edge. The wood is cool and damp. I settle onto it, letting the structure of the city fade into the background. Here begins the long wait, the valley of time where nothing happens and everything happens. I watch the surface of the canal. It is not still, not truly. There is a current, slow and deep, visible only in the way a fallen leaf travels from left to right. It drifts with agonizing slowness, rotating gently, caught in the tension of the water's surface. A duck paddles by, closer to the far bank. The wake it creates is a geometric marvel. The V-shape expands, the ripples moving outward in perfect, concentric lines. I follow one single ripple. It is a ridge of light moving across the darkness. It travels 1 meter, 2 meters, 3. It softens as it goes, the peak becoming lower, the trough shallower, until it simply ceases to exist, absorbed by the stillness. I breathe in. The air is moist. I breathe out. A white cloud forms and dissolves. Further down, a willow tree dips its longest branches into the water. The tips of the leaves are submerged. As the current moves, the branches sway, creating a tiny, rhythmic disturbance. A small circle of ripples radiates from the contact point. It is a pulse, a heartbeat of the canal. I lift my eyes to the trees on the opposite bank. Their trunks are dark, textured with moss and lichen. The bark is rugged, a landscape of deep fissures and ridges. Above, the leaves are turning. There is green, yes, but also the first hints of gold and russet. They do not move. The wind has died down completely. They hang suspended, a frozen explosion of color against the gray-blue sky. My gaze drops back to the water. The reflection of the buildings is inverted and wavering. The stepped gables of the houses look like stairs leading down into a submerged world. The red brick becomes a smear of copper. The white window frames become shimmering bars of silver. When the water is undisturbed, the reflection is nearly perfect. A second city sleeping beneath the first. But then a breeze touches the surface, and the city dissolves into impressionist strokes, a painting being washed away by turpentine. I close my eyes. The visual world disappears, leaving only the auditory. The sound of the water is faint. A lap, a gurgle, the soft slap of liquid against stone. Far away, a bell tolls. It is deep and resonant. 1, 2, 3. The sound travels through the heavy air, losing its sharp edges before it reaches me. It is a round sound, a hum that vibrates in the chest. I listen to the space between the bells. The silence is not empty. It is filled with the rustle of a bird shifting in the branches, the distant hum of a car on a perimeter road, the scuff of a shoe on gravel somewhere behind me. I open my eyes. The light has shifted. The sun has moved behind a cloud, turning the water from a mirror into a sheet of slate. I stand. The movement is fluid. My legs feel heavy, grounded. I begin to walk again, following the line of the canal. The path is lined with lime trees, their trunks planted at regular intervals. I count them as I pass. 1, 2, 3. The repetition is soothing. The gravel crunches rhythmically. Step, crunch, step, crunch. There is no goal here, no destination that requires rushing. The path curves gently, following the natural bend of the waterway. I pass a group of swans. They are sleeping on the grassy bank, their heads tucked under their wings, transforming themselves into large, white stones. One of them wakes as I pass, lifting a long, serpentine neck to watch me. Its eyes are dark beads. It watches without interest, then lowers its head again, tucking the beak back into the warmth of the feathers. I continue. The path narrows. The buildings crowd closer to the water. The sense of enclosure returns, the feeling of walking through a canyon of brick and history. The bridge appears ahead. It is the Pierdenbrug, the horse bridge. It is not grand. It does not have the soaring towers or the golden statues of other landmarks. It is a working bridge, built in the 17th century, sturdy and arched. It is made of brick and stone, its colors blending seamlessly with the quay. I stop at the base of the bridge. I do not cross it immediately. Instead, I move to the side, where the stone parapet meets the bank. I lean over, looking down at the water line. Here, built into the base of the bridge, are the water stairs. They are simple steps, cut from blue limestone, descending from the street level down into the canal. They were once used for horses to drink, or for washerwomen to reach the water, or for goods to be unloaded from flat-bottomed boats. Now they are empty. My eyes trace the shape of the steps. They are not flat. I focus on the concave, where, on the center of the stairs, it is a subtle erosion, a hollowing out of the hard stone. It looks as though a giant thumb has pressed into a block of clay. The depression is smooth, polished by the friction of 1,000,000 footsteps, 1,000,000 hooves, 1,000,000 wooden buckets. I can see the grain of the stone in the hollow. It is lighter than the surrounding rock, pale gray against the dark, weathered charcoal of the edges. The wear is deepest in the middle, tapering off toward the sides. It is a physical record of movement. It maps the path of least resistance. I imagine the leather soles, the iron horseshoes, the bare feet that created this shape. It is a sculpture made by routine. Rainwater has collected in the deepest part of the hollow, on the second step. It sits there, a tiny, captive pool reflecting the arch of the bridge above. It is perfectly still. I move my gaze lower, down to the water itself. The canal laps against the bottom steps. The water level is high today, but it is the stone just above the water that draws my attention. On the third step from the bottom, there is a dark tide mark. It is a horizontal band, stained into the limestone. It is almost black, a stark contrast to the pale gray of the dry stone above it. The line is not straight. It undulates slightly, mimicking the motion of the small waves. This dark band is alive with texture. It is slick with algae, a velvety green-black moss that clings to the pores of the rock. It glistens with moisture. I observe the way the water interacts with it. A small wave washes up, covering the mark, submerging the third step entirely. Then the water recedes, draining away with a soft, sucking sound. The stone emerges again. It is wetter now, shining. I watch this cycle repeat. Wash, recede, wash, recede. The tide mark is the boundary between two worlds. Above the line, the stone belongs to the city, to the air, to the pigeons that land on the edge to drink. Below the line, the stone belongs to the canal, to the fish, to the dark silt at the bottom. The third step exists in both. It is a threshold. I lean further over the parapet, resting my chin on my folded arms. The brick of the bridge wall is rough against my sleeves. It smells of damp mortar. I let my eyes unfocus slightly, taking in the whole scene of the water stairs, the geometry of the blocks, the organic curve of the wear, the biological darkness of the tide line. It is a composition of textures, hard and soft, dry and wet, permanent and transient. The light begins to change again. The afternoon is wearing on. The sun has moved past the zenith and is beginning its slow descent toward the rooftops. The shadows under the arch of the Pierdenbrug lengthen, stretching out across the water like fingers. I stand up from the wall, feeling the stiffness in my shoulders. It is a good stiffness, the result of stillness. I step onto the bridge itself. The surface is paved with cobblestones, arranged in a fan pattern. I walk to the center of the arch. From here, the view opens up in both directions. To the left, the canal curves away toward the Church of Our Lady, its spire piercing the sky. To the right, the water disappears under the canopy of trees where I walked earlier. I place my hands on the stone railing. The stone is warm now, having absorbed the diffuse sunlight of the day. I look down at the water directly beneath the bridge. It is darker here, in the shadow of the arch. The reflection of the underside of the bridge creates a perfect circle with the structure itself. A portal of brick and water. A boat approaches from the distance. It is small, moving quietly. The engine is a low thrum, barely audible. I watch it come closer. The prow cuts the water cleanly. The passengers are silent, their faces turned upward, looking at the buildings, looking at me, looking at the sky. They pass beneath me. For a moment, they disappear into the shadow of the bridge. Then they emerge on the other side, gliding away into the light. The wake they leave behind rocks the reflection of the bridge, shattering the perfect circle into fragments of red and gray. I wait for the water to settle. It takes a long time. The chaotic chop of the wake slowly reorganizes itself into rhythmic swells, then into gentle ripples, and finally back into glass. The circle reforms. I stay on the bridge as the light deepens. The colors of the city are becoming richer. The red of the roofs turns to maroon. The brown of the water turns to bronze. The air is cooling again, the dampness rising from the canal to meet the twilight. I do not move to leave. There is nowhere else to be. The day is dissolving around me, losing its definition, softening into the coming evening. My hands rest on the warm stone. My breath matches the slow drift of the current below. The city holds me in its quiet brick embrace, and I let the moment linger, unfinished, suspended above the dark, waiting water. The morning light in the lingerie district does not break so much as it dissolves. It softens the hard edges of the slate roofs and turns the canal into a long, polished mirror of silver and gray. I am standing at the northern edge of the city, where the water is wide and the air holds the chill of the nearby sea. There is no urgency here. The tourists have not yet risen, and the few locals on bicycles drift past with a quiet whir of rubber on cobblestone, disappearing into the mist like ghosts. My boots find the rhythm of the quay. This is the Long Reach, a stretch of water that once welcomed the great trading ships, but now serves only the swans and the silent, moored barges. The houses here are tall, their facades stepping up toward the sky in brick staircases, casting long, wavering reflections that dance on the surface of the canal. I move north. The city feels different here, away from the central squares. It is a place of residence, of quiet domesticity, where the curtains are drawn against the morning damp, and the smell of roasting coffee is faint and fleeting. To my right, the water is a constant companion. It does not flow with any visible current, but seems to breathe, rising and falling imperceptibly against the moss-slicked brickwork of the quay walls. Ahead, the silhouette of the Tour du Unbroken emerges from the haze. It is a wooden lifting bridge, a structure of balance and weight that connects the banks with an ancient, utilitarian grace. I approach it slowly. The timber is dark, soaked by centuries of rain and river mist, black as cured leather. I step onto the planks. There is a hollow, resonant thud beneath my feet, a sound that belongs to a different century. I pause in the center of the span. The mechanism of the bridge is above me, a heavy beam and chain designed to lift the road for passing boats. I wait. I listen. The wood settles. It shifts slightly under its own weight, and then I hear it. A low, heavy sigh. It is the sound of timber rubbing against timber, a groan of relaxation as the structure adjusts to the temperature of the morning. It is not a mechanical noise, but an organic one, like the exhale of a sleeping giant. I run a hand along the railing. The wood is rough and cool, the grain raised by weathering. It vibrates slightly, humming with the invisible energy of the water flowing beneath. I linger here, suspended over the canal, watching a single white feather drift slowly under the bridge, spinning in a lazy circle before continuing its journey toward the city center. Leaving the bridge, I turn my back to the open north and begin the journey inward toward the heart of the district. The path follows the water, winding through the Groneré, the Green Canal. The name is not a metaphor. Here, the trees lean out from the private gardens, their branches forming a vaulted ceiling of leaves that turns the light emerald and gold. The transition is gradual. The stone of the Langerais gives way to the verdant tunnel of the Groneré. The air grows stiller, heavier with the scent of wet earth and river weeds. I allow my pace to match the slow drift of the fallen leaves on the surface of the water. This is the Valley of the Walk, a space where time stretches and thins until it is translucent. I settle into a rhythm that requires no thought. Left foot, right foot. The gravel of the path is fine and pale, crunching softly with a sound like sugar dissolving. The noise is consistent, a white noise anchor that keeps me tethered to the present moment. I do not look for landmarks. I do not seek out names or dates. I simply move. The canal to my left is a study in textures. Near the bank, where the water meets the stone, tiny ripples lap against the mortar, creating a lace-like pattern of foam that forms and vanishes in the span of a breath. Further out, the surface is glass, disturbed only by the occasional surfacing of a fish or the landing of an insect. The reflections of the trees are perfect inverted worlds where the leaves are just as green and the sky just as deep. I pass a row of garden walls. They are old, built of brick that has softened to the color of dried roses. Ivy cascades down their sides, a waterfall of green that obscures the masonry. I trace the patterns of the vines with my eyes. They are chaotic yet harmonious, a map of growth that has taken decades to draw. The light shifts, a cloud passes overhead, and the emerald canopy dims, the shadows deepening, wrapping the path in a cool, protective gloom. Then the cloud moves on, and shafts of sunlight pierce the leaves, striking the water like solid bars of gold. I watch the motes of dust dancing in these beams, tiny planets orbiting in the stillness. My breathing slows. It aligns with the cadence of my steps. Inhale for 3 paces. Exhale for 3 paces. The air is rich and cool, tasting of damp stone and green living things. It fills my lungs, expanding my chest, and then leaves me, taking with it any residual tension from the shoulders, the neck, the jaw. I find a bench set back slightly from the path, nestled under the overhang of a willow tree. I sit. The wood of the bench is polished smooth by countless other travelers who have paused here. I lean back. The willow branches drape around me like a curtain, separating me from the path, creating a private alcove of shadow and light. I do not move. I let my hands rest loosely in my lap. My eyes lose their focus, softening until the canal and the trees blur into a single wash of color. The sounds of the city are non-existent here. There is no hum of traffic, no distant sirens. There is only the wind in the leaves, a sound like rushing water, and the water itself, a sound like breathing. A duck paddles by, its movement creating a V-shaped wake that spreads out across the canal, distorting the reflections. I watch the wake widen and fade until the water is smooth again. The stillness returns, absolute and profound. It is not an empty silence, but a full one, heavy with the presence of the trees and the water. I close my eyes. I listen to the layers of the quiet, the rustle of a bird in the underbrush, the snap of a twig, the soft plop of something falling into the water, an acorn, perhaps, or a heavy drop of condensation. These sounds do not break the silence, they deepen it, defining its edges. Minutes pass, or perhaps hours. The concept of time feels irrelevant here, something that belongs to the stone streets and the clock towers, not to this green tunnel. I am simply a part of the landscape, as stationary as the bench, as passive as the moss on the wall. I open my eyes. The light has changed angle slightly, slanting more steeply through the trees. It is time to move again. I stand, my movements slow and deliberate, preserving the calm I have gathered. I step back onto the gravel path. The rhythm resumes. Crunchy, crunchy, crunchy. The sound is familiar now, a comfort. I follow the curve of the canal, watching how the water bends around the land, accommodating the earth with liquid fluidity. The path narrows, guiding me closer to the water's edge, until I am walking just inches from the drop. I watch the play of light on the brickwork of the opposite bank. The bricks are not uniform. They vary from pale yellow to deep ochre, a mosaic of fired earth. Some are crumbling, their edges rounded by the elements. Others are sharp and new, repairs made by careful hands. Together, they form a tapestry of history that requires no words to understand. The green tunnel begins to open up. The canopy lifts, admitting more sky. The air grows slightly warmer as the sun finds the pavement. I am approaching the end of the valley, the place where the solitude of the walk meets the quiet architecture of the almshouses. I slow my pace, letting the momentum of the long walk fade naturally. Ahead, nestled between the larger merchant houses, lies a modest, arched entrance. It is easily missed. There are no grand signs, no crowds gathering. It is the Godchuis de Pelican, the Pelican Almshouse. I step through the gate. The sounds of the canal, already faint, vanish entirely. I am in a courtyard, a secret garden enclosed by whitewashed walls and red-tiled roofs. The ground is paved with cobblestones, interspersed with beds of flowering herbs and manicured hedges. It is a space designed for silence, for contemplation. I walk to the center of the courtyard. The air here is still, protected from the breeze by the surrounding buildings. It smells of lavender and damp stone. I turn slowly, taking in the symmetry of the architecture. The doors of the small houses are painted a deep, glossy green, each one identical, each one promising a simple, ordered life. My attention is drawn to the facade of the main building. It is old, the brickwork weathered to a soft, warm texture. But it is the moss that captures me. Along the lower courses of the stone, where the shadow of the roof never quite lifts, a layer of moss has taken hold. I approach the wall. I take off my glove. I reach out. The moss is vibrant, a shocking emerald green against the gray stone. It looks like velvet, thick and plush. I press my fingertips into it. It is impossibly soft, yielding under the lightest pressure. It is cool to the touch, holding the moisture of the morning dew deep within its fibers. I run my fingers across the surface. It does not feel like a plant. It feels like a fabric woven by the earth itself. There is a dampness to it that seeps into my skin, a connection to the water that flows just outside these walls. I stand there for a long moment, my hand resting on the living wall. The sensation is grounding. It connects the heat of my hand to the cool permanence of the building. I trace the irregular edges of the moss patch, mapping its miniature geography of hills and valleys with my fingertips. Above the moss, set into the stone above the central door, is the relief I have come to find. I step back to see it clearly. It is a stone carving, oval in shape, framed by scrolls of masonry. The image is weathered, the sharp edges softened by centuries of wind and rain, but the form is unmistakable. It is a pelican. The bird sits in its nest, its wings half spread, its long neck curved down toward its chest. Beneath it, 3 small chicks wait with open beaks. I study the carving. The stone is gray, speckled with lichen that matches the roof tiles. The sculptor captured attention in the bird's posture, a deliberate, sacrificial grace. The legend says the pelican feeds its young with its own blood in times of famine. I do not analyze the myth. I simply look at the stone. I see the curve of the wing, the texture of the feathers chipped out of rock by a hand that has been dust for 300 years. The light in the courtyard is fading now, the sun dipping below the roofline, casting long, cool shadows across the cobblestones. The white walls turn a soft blue-gray. The relief of the pelican seems to recede into the stone, its details blurring as the contrast lowers. I lower my gaze from the carving to the garden. The lavender bushes are gray-green ghosts in the twilight. A single blackbird lands on the roof ridge, sings a short, melodic phrase, and flies away. The silence rushes back in to fill the space where the song was. I move toward a wooden bench set against the wall, opposite the pelican. I sit. The wood is hard and solid. I lean my head back against the whitewashed brick. The texture of the wall is rough against my hair. I do not check the time. There is nowhere else to be. The gate I entered through is a rectangle of dim light, leading back to the world, but I am not ready to cross it. I watch the sky above the courtyard turn from pale blue to a deep, bruised violet. My hands rest on my knees. I can still feel the ghost sensation of the cool, damp moss on my fingertips. The memory of the bridge's heavy sigh echoes faintly in my mind, a counterpoint to the absolute stillness of this garden. The day is dissolving. The colors are draining away, leaving only shapes and tones. The white walls glow faintly, holding the last of the daylight. The windows of the small houses are dark, reflecting the darkening sky. I breathe in the cooling air. It is sweeter now, the smell of the night blooming jasmine mixing with the river scent. My eyes feel heavy, not with exhaustion, but with the weight of seeing, of observing so closely. I let my gaze drift, unfocused, across the courtyard. The shapes of the hedges merge with the shadows of the walls. The stone pelican is just a shadow now, a silent guardian in the gloom. The world narrows down to this square of quiet. The rhythm of my breath is the only clock that matters. I let the stillness wash over me, layer by layer. I close my eyes, and the image of the green canal remains, a bright ribbon behind my eyelids. The water flows on, silent and slow. The bridge waits, the moss grows, and I rest